how exactly is Activision Blizzard going to bring a positive first quarter 2019 earnings result? In this video, I'm going to be talking about what I think is important to understand as we get closer to that May 2nd earnings date. First, let's have a quick recap. It's been about 2 months since Activision Blizzard reported its fourth quarter 2018 earnings results back in February. In terms of its financials, Activision had what I would say an amazing 2018, generating a record $7.5 billion, and its stock price rose to an all-time high of $84.68. On the flip side, Activision had some drawbacks. It had a PR disaster that occurred during BlizzCon with the announcement of Diablo Immortal due to fans not really liking the idea of one of its core franchises having its next major release being solely available on mobile. A steady decline in its monthly active user base over the course of 2018 also drew some concern. Then came the firing of 8% of its workforce to essentially focus more of its efforts to work on its biggest franchises, allowing Activision to bring more developers in and worry less about workers who really didn't contribute to its bottom line. And it also lost 2 of its C-suite executives to other firms. So now that we've had that recap, let's get into the bulk of this video. As we already know, Activision is going to be refocusing its efforts on its core franchise games, as well as mobile gaming and esports. Mobile gaming and esports in particular are going to be very important growth factors for the company moving forward. I want to explain and dive deep into mobile gaming and esports so we can get an understanding of how these 2 units of its business are going to be very big contributors in the future. Newzoo released its 2018 Global Games Report that shows the amount of money that mobile games generated for the year, which was more than 50% of the aggregate games market. This is a huge shift in where most of the revenue was coming from a decade ago, where most of it was PC-based and console-based. This strong growth is predominantly driven by Asia Pacific and most notably the Chinese market. Remember that Diablo PR disaster that happened during BlizzCon? Regardless of the immediate fan disappointment that we saw at BlizzCon when fans heard that one of Blizzard's next biggest games will be released solely on the phone, when the majority of their actual gamers are PC lovers, it doesn't actually prove that this will be a bust. The data doesn't lie. On a global basis, this is exactly what the majority of players want, a compelling mobile-first experience that brings elements of PC and console gaming into the mobile arena. Most mobile game makers don't have as large of a budget as Blizzard, so they most likely won't be able to produce such a large-scale IP, such as Diablo Immortal. So we'll just have to wait and see what happens when this comes out and how it compares to the previous Diablo games that have been solely on PC. Oh yeah, and also the Nintendo Switch. Activision and Tencent had a collaborative agreement to distribute Call of Duty online throughout China back in 2012. And with a recent announcement back in December with Call of Duty having a mobile game, this will be great for the company. Tencent will be the main distributor for the Chinese market, which will allow Activision Blizzard as a whole to have an initial wide reach of this game over that region. Tencent, being one of the largest distributors of games alongside Activision, will give the company exposure to that Asian market, which is making up over 50% of the world's gamers. Esports is expected to reach $1.1 billion in revenue for 2019, and Activision remains on top of all of its competitors through its investments in the Overwatch League. Last year, with the Overwatch League's inaugural season, it had reached a total of 13 million gamers worldwide. Earlier this year, Blizzard had announced that it had signed a multi-year sponsor deal with Coca-Cola, which I think validates how real esports is becoming. Following the footsteps of the Overwatch League, Activision at its last quarterly announcements also said that it will be coming out with a Call of Duty League later this year. Unlike Overwatch, the actual game, which came out in 2016, Call of Duty has been around since 2003. So just based off of those years, Call of Duty has had way more time to develop a large fan base. So when the league comes out, I think it's safe to say that Call of Duty will have a lot of support and it'll be a pretty good success. So there's another there's another good esports league for Activision to bring in the dough. One other thing to note about esports is that we need to remember it is still in its infancy stages, even though it's been around for as long as video games have, and video games have been around forever, honestly. I've got an article here. I actually have the printed version, but I highly recommend it. This is where I've gotten a good chunk of my knowledge base from a lot of earnings reports and stuff like that, Newzoo reports, and there's this really cool, right now I'm looking at it and it's backwards, but I hope when you actually see it, it's not. There's this cool Goldman Sachs report that came out last year about esports. It's pretty lengthy. It's about like 20-30 pages long, and this uses a lot of the Newzoo data because it's the most prominent analytics company out there for esports. One of the points I want to make is that right here, esports has dramatically increased its viewership over the years to where it's actually comparable to that of some professional sports leagues, such as the Major League Baseball League and the NHL, where esports actually has around 150 million viewers right now. MLB has 2130, and the NHL has around, let's say, 60-70 million. And this goes to show that if the growth levels for esports, I know I'm saying it a lot, continues, that it'll be a really significant growth and revenue factor for Activision in the years to come. So now I want to talk about my own expectations for Activision Blizzard for the first quarter 2019. First and foremost, the financials, how it's looking right now since the last fourth quarter 2018 earnings. Recently, it closed at $47.28. $47.28, and sorry guys, that is actually not right. I'm kind of putting the video together a couple weeks after the fact of having finished and filmed the majority of it, but it's actually April 26th today, and the last closing price was $48.15. Sorry about that. Yeah, just been busy with this little guy, Barney. Oh, yep, there we go. So let's get back into the video. And it currently has a market cap of $36 billion with around $2.7 billion in long-term debt that is also supported by $4.2 billion in cash, which shows that it has a strong balance sheet. Regardless of the fact that it has $2.7 billion in debt, it has a strong enough cash balance to offset the debt that it has. So it could pay it off essentially if it wanted to. So just looking at the stock price first, Activision lost about 50% of its value over the past couple of months since the October highs of $84.65. So for the past couple of weeks, it's been floating around like the low 40s to high 40s range. So let's say $45 a share. It's basically been around since it kind of dipped from the highs of October. Honestly, I don't expect Activision's stock price to go up at all within the next couple weeks to, let's say, the next half of the year. I just expect it to kind of float around the same range, maybe uptick to the $50 range. But since it doesn't really have new major releases of any games, it's not really coming out with a World of Warcraft expansion yet, a new Hearthstone expansion really, or a new game in general, we can expect it to just float around that same range. Overall, I think this is going to be a building year for Activision Blizzard, as it really doesn't have any new games and content to put out. I think that this will be a year of growth in terms of esports and mobile games, so those business units of Activision will be important to watch. It'll be important to see how esports and mobile are growing in terms of numbers, in terms of viewership, how many people are tuning in to watch the Overwatch League and the Call of Duty League during the year. Will we see an increase in viewership over the year, or will it decline? So those are important factors to watch out for as well. And then I think it'll also be important to see the Chinese market and look at Newzoo articles or any articles that we can find, and how many people are tuning in the Chinese market to mobile games. Because China is such a large part of the gaming market, it'll be interesting to see how that grows, because then as an aggregate, we'll be able to tell and know that the gaming industry as a whole is growing. So that will be something I'm going to be looking into as well. But anyway, despite having a quiet pipeline for the rest of the year, it's just going to be a wait and see game with Activision at this point, and I'm excited to see what they come out with on the May 2nd Q1 earnings report. So stay tuned for that video. And yeah, as always guys, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to comment down below if you have any cool questions and stuff. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Take it out. Boo! Boo. Buddy, I gotta make my YouTube video. I can't play with you right now.